All right, let's try that again. Seasonal allergies. My apologies. This presentation is a very broad overview of the future road improvements. Specific questions or comments can be emailed to me directly at scward@olathe.ks.org or submitted via the chat box at any time. If we do run out of time before answering your question, please email or call me, and my goal is to respond back within 3 business days. The city's capital improvement plan identified Lone Elm Road from 119th Street to Harold Street as a priority project needed to address safety concerns and future traffic capacity. A few of the safety improvements include a center median, streetlights, sidewalks, on-street bike lanes, and turn lanes. Regarding the efficiency and capacity improvements, the future traffic volumes do not justify changing Lone Elm into a 4-lane road. The new road will remain a single lane in each direction. Turn lanes in the proposed roundabouts improve not only the safety, but promote efficient traffic movement. The next few slides review the existing conditions on the left and the proposed improvements on the right. Each drive lane on the existing road is narrow compared to the future roadway. The proposed road will have wider lanes, dedicated turn lanes, a median separating traffic, and the removal of trees adjacent to the roadway. In the city's ongoing commitment to be a walkable community, Lone Elm Road will now have a 5-foot wide sidewalk on the west side and a 10-foot wide side path on the east side. The new sidewalks will tie into any existing sidewalks. Without the benefit of curb, gutter, and an underground storm sewer system, the rainwater is carried in the green space and along the edge of road. This open flow situation creates both erosion concerns and overgrowth issues. The existing conditions can hinder a driver's line of sight, and this reduces the amount of time available for the driver to make a decision. The picture shows a driver waiting on 124th Street while a school bus traveling south on Lone Elm becomes visible after cresting the hill. To improve the overall sight distance, Lone Elm will be flattened as much as possible, and this flattening has to take into account the impact to adjacent properties, driveways, and side street connections. Trimming and removing overgrowth can also help the overall sight distance. There are a handful of streetlights along the corridor. However, the future improvements will include new LED streetlights, and space will be made for bicycles with an on-street 5-foot wide bike lane in each direction. This rendering highlights some of the enhancements in the project. Working from left to right, there's a 5-foot wide sidewalk, on-street bike lanes, a single drive lane in each direction, a center median, a representative streetlight, and a 10-foot wide side path. Again, the 5-foot wide sidewalk will be located on the west side of Lone Elm, and the 10-foot wide side path will be located on the east side. Dedicated left and right turn lanes are not shown, though they are a part of the project. This slide shows a conceptual view of the proposed improvements. This exhibit is fairly large for PowerPoint, so for quality reasons, the exhibit is divided into 2 pieces and only a few of the side streets are labeled. In the far left corner of the top exhibit is the intersection of Harold and Lone Elm. The top exhibit goes from Harold Street to the dual roundabouts, which are proposed to be located at 124th Street and 123rd Terrace. For reference, the bottom exhibit also shows the dual roundabouts, and the improvements proceed north, stopping short of the new 119th Street intersection, which is located in the lower right corner. The road alignment is staying virtually the same. The side street intersections and roundabouts will be discussed in the next few slides. Full access allows all left and right turns from and to a given street. The following intersections are proposed to have full access. They are 120th Street and 122nd Street. After reviewing the existing conditions and the roadway design variables, a center median is proposed across certain intersections. The following intersections are proposed to only allow right turns in and right turns out. These are 121st Street, 122nd Terrace, North Parker Street, 125th Terrace, and 126th Street. The amount of traffic on Lone Elm Road makes roundabouts a great solution to guide and move traffic in a safe and efficient manner. Roundabouts do provide complete access to all connected streets, and roundabouts also serve as U-turn locations for intersections with access control. This proposed roundabout is at Lone Elm and Harold. It will remove the four-way stop, eliminate left turn conflicts, and its long-term traffic capacity is expected to avoid the need for a future traffic signal. The intersections of 124th Street and 123rd Terrace pose a few challenges, and the best solution is this dual roundabout. North of 123rd Terrace, the road slopes away quickly. The future road can only be raised so high without negatively impacting the adjacent properties. The closeness of the two intersections can cause issues with competing left turns, and the pond on the west side limits the amount of room for road improvements. And since this is roughly the middle point between 119th Street and Harold, a pedestrian crossing is envisioned near these intersections. A dual roundabout was selected as the best way to allow northbound and southbound movements meet the pedestrian needs while fitting into the limitations of the existing conditions. No new traffic signals will be installed with the project. However, a pedestrian signal will be part of the project, and it will be activated by pedestrians to help them cross Lone Elm in a more controlled, safer manner. The pedestrian signal is tentatively going to be placed between 123rd Terrace and 124th Street. As part of the improvements, the old warehouse between 123rd Terrace and 124th Street will be removed. Our tentative schedule is to hold an in-person and virtual public meeting early in 2026. The plans will have greater detail, and any private property impacts are expected to be known. When the meeting details are finalized, the information will be sent out via postcard. Speaking of private property impacts, the city may request right-of-way or easements from adjacent property owners. Those property owners will be contacted by the city beginning in early 2026. If any relocation work is needed by the private utilities, companies such as Atmos, Evergy, or the various communication companies, then that work could start in the middle of 2026. Finally, the road construction is tentatively planned for 2027, with the construction taking about a year. Thank you for your time, and we will make every effort to make this project successful. This concludes the presentation. There'll be a short break before I start it again. And if you prefer to contact me directly, my information is on the slide. Now I'll switch over to questions, and volume is not very loud, hard to hear. Apologize, I didn't see that earlier. Is that better? There is a question about the center median is not a proposed raised median. Okay, the center median is proposed to be a raised median. It won't be striped, if that's what you're asking. Yes, there'll be a raised median with curb and gutter, grass, and then in certain areas we'll have brook pavers, the certain areas being the turn lanes. There's a question about difficulty seeing the slides. I had some confirmation that they were up. Apologize if you weren't able to see them. Expected completion deadline. is a question. Right now, our forecast is to start construction 2027, and the uh, construction is anticipated to take a year. That's what our forecast is. Any plans for widening Lone Elm from 119th to College? That I'll have to research and post that answer. By the way, this presentation and uh, part of the audio stream from this and I believe the question and answers are posted on the city's webpage. There's a question, does the roundabout at Harold include a pedestrian crossing? Uh, yes, it does. In every quadrant or every leg of the intersection. So right here is a pedestrian crossing of Lone Elm and Harold West Side. Um, and I believe that we'll have a RRFB, which is just a rectangular rapid flashing beacon, and it's something uh, that the pedestrians can push. It will flash. It's different than the pedestrian signal that's proposed at within the roundabout. That actually switches to red, and so it acts like a traffic signal. How will mailboxes be addressed for homes along Lone Elm? That is a great question because and at this point I don't have an answer to it. Um, I, because yes, it's North Parker, I believe from Harold up to about 123rd Terrace, and then it switches. So that will, when I do get an answer, um, it will be posted, and then if there is an impact to the individuals whose addresses will change, I believe the city sends out a letter. There's a question, will the construction on 119th Street be completed prior to starting this project? From what I understand, the intersection of 119th and Lone Elm will be finished, or is expected to be finished by the end of the year. The entire 119th Street project, I believe there might be a little bit of overlap, but great question, and I will check into that. But the intersection, which is a big impact to us, um, will be done. It is expected to be done late this year. I just received an update that 119th Street is expected to be complete early in 2027. So right around when we anticipate starting. Yep. And there's another question about the home addresses, and that's a great question. I got that have to get an answer for. Will there be a stoplight at 119th and Lone Elm? Well, fortunately, yes, there will be. There's a question, will this be wider than what is now in place from 119th to College? I'm not aware of how wide that is. If there are on-street bike lanes on that section, then it could be about approximately the same time. Same size, excuse me. Um, Going back to the question about the traffic signal at 119th and Lone Elm, that project, the 119th Street project, is installing that signal. Materials are expected to be delivered early November and installed prior to the end of the year. Would this project lead to an increase of the current 35-mile-an-hour speed limit? Yes, our proposed speed limit would be 40. And I believe that's similar to the sections north and south of this segment. Question, are there any proposed schedules for when Lone Elm will be closed? No, no, not at this time. Um, when we when we do I mentioned a meeting in early 2026, which would be when we have the plans more fully developed, and it'll be both an in-person and a virtual. And the nice thing about the in-person is we'll have a big set of plans that you can flip through, and you can go right to your home and ask specific questions. You know, is my fence going to be disturbed, or what are you going to do here? And then our next meeting that we would have, again, it would be in person and a virtual, will be what we call meet the contractor. And at that time, um, we'll have a construction schedule, and we'll be able to uh, accurately show um, where they expect to work, and so their phasing and how long they expect that phasing to take. I know there are certain streets that, in fact, I was talking to a gentleman who lives in off 126th Street, and that is 126 is the only access point for all those homes back there, and I believe there's two others. So he had a question about maintaining access, and even during construction, in a situation like that, we have to maintain access 24/7. Simply because not only do you need to get to work and conduct your business, but if there's something unfortunate and emergency services need to get back there, then we have to provide 24/7 access. Now, that doesn't mean that there might be a moment where we have a paving operation in front of the street, and it causes a slight delay, and then we do have to rebuild the connection slightly also of the side streets to Lone Elm. So those types of dates, we'll make sure that we get out to the neighborhood, and we'll still have to provide some form of access when we do that work on the street-to-street connections. How will the detours be designated? We haven't gotten to the point about talking about determining which detour route we would use. And then once we do that, that will be part of the meet the contractor meeting. And then, of course, the signing. Uh, and if there are HOAs that could be a single point of contact for project information, then I'd be glad to distribute our detour maps to the HOAs once we have those established. How much total width? So for this project, this is a great exhibit. I hope you can see this. Um, for the right of way, um, we are asking for to go to a total of 100 feet, and we shrunk that down as much as we could based on the existing conditions, because we don't like taking extra property, nor do we like getting into people's yards more than we need to. So with that 100 foot of right of way, the plan is that each drive lane will be 12 foot 3 inches. Some of uh, the existing lanes, when I was out there and measured them, they were 10 feet or so, and all of you know this better than I do because you drive it daily. 5 feet for the bike lane, and then we have what's called a green space, and that varies depending on where it is, um, and then the side path or the sidewalk, as depending on which side it is. So, and a question is about loss of trees on 120th. Right now, we can't speculate at this time. We're what we're in the conceptual phase of the design, and then once we get things in place, if you will, uh, then we start to see the impacts to adjacent properties. I've worked for the city 6 years, and one thing I know that we do our due diligence on is that if we can avoid a tree, we will do it. So um, when we have the meeting in early January, we may, I stress may at that point, be able to show some of those impacts and whether or not we're asking to remove a tree. There's a question about the median. Um, when there are no other medians on any incoming or outgoing street. Um, so uh, the design for this type of road is um, it's a busy road in that it needs a median um, to in order to establish the turn bays and also to uh, help with the access control. Um, However, it's not busy enough to go with the full 4 lanes. Um, so the streets, I'm not sure exactly what streets you're referring to, but depending on when they were built, designed, um, they had a different idea back then of how to build a street like Lone Elm Road with this type of traffic on it. So um, if if you'd like to email me, again, anyone here, if you'd like to email me, and especially if I could ask the individual who asked about the addresses and the address change. That way, I would definitely like to get that answer to you. Is the city going to replace fencing that may need to be pulled back? Yes, yes, absolutely. So anytime we touch a fence for construction, um, we we typically replace in kind with new. Question about, do you expect much cut and fill to level off the road profile? Um, how much would the estimated improvement cost? So the first question, how much cut and fill? Well, again, um, as you're aware, north of 123rd Terrace, there's a valley, and it's fairly significant. Um, However, we can't add so much dirt that we start to impact the adjacent yards or the properties on the west side of the road. So it's a delicate balance, and that's also one of the reasons why we chose the dual roundabouts at 123rd Terrace and 124th Street, because that will help us um, with with lines of excuse me, lines of sight, and also allowing the traffic to get onto Lone Elm in a more controlled fashion than if it was just open like it is now. Will the will the green space be mowed regularly? Um, And then what about landscaping? Landscaping, along Lone Elm question, I do not have an answer on that at this time. Um, and if to replace lost trees, typically, um, if a tree is within private property, um, there's usually compensation versus trying to replace a tree. Question about the difference in surface for the side path as opposed to the sidewalk. Uh, they both are concrete. If 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 that doesn't show up real well, yep. So sidewalk is concrete, and side path will be concrete. Individual asking about fences. Um, uh, and they joined late. So right now we don't know fence impacts. We should have that information early 2026. And if your fence does need to be replaced, or excuse me, is impacted by the project, then we will replace it in kind. And as far as will this question about will this require loss of any of my property as I back to the street? It not knowing where you're at specifically and what we need to do behind your property, I can't tell you that right now. But by early January, we'll have uh, information on that. Excuse me, allergies again. Okay, back in the saddle, so to speak. Um, so, and also to the individual that joined late, although I'll probably start the presentation here in a couple more minutes. So actually, um, for anyone who did join late, I'll start the presentation again. That way you didn't miss any of the excitement. Um, so for questions about your property, um, if we do need any property from you, um, we'll send you a letter, and that's anticipated to go out early in 2026. And we'll have a public meeting in early 2026, actually two, one virtual, one in person. And at those meetings, we'll have a set of plans, and you can walk up and we can look specifically at your property, and we'll be able to explain if we need something, why, and what we'll be doing. So I hope that helps. So I think I missed one question about will um, Lone Elm be closed to traffic during construction? Yes, segments of it will be closed to traffic. It's um, and and detour routes will be established. Uh, I've done projects where we've tried to build and keep the road open, and it's a very difficult task, and it does two things. It increases the safety risk for for everyone, um, in, including the people who work on the road, the people who drive along it, and then also it increases the amount of time it takes to build the project. If when they're able to close a segment of the road, and again, we haven't defined what that segment is yet, um, then they can get in there and just go and not have to worry about cars driving by them. All right. Okay. I I believe I covered m most of the um, most of the question and answers. Again, if I missed somebody, apologize. Please Send me an email or give me a call. Be glad to answer. All right. Okay. So thank you everyone for joining us this evening for a virtual public meeting about the Lone Elm Road Improvements Project from 119th Street to Harold Street. This presentation will cover some of the major parts of the proposed improvements. And also, just as a note, some of the details or the questions, great questions, but very detailed, um, that that we can answer at a later date. This is merely a conceptual level view of the plans. We have a lot of work to do to be able to answer the details about detours and impacts to property. However, we will get to those details, and at the right time, we'll hold a meeting and ensure that we answer your questions. So, with that, my name is Scott Ward, and I am the City of Olathe's project manager. The project is being designed by GFT, and their lead engineer is Matt Gottabed. Please note that in order to reduce any potential background noises, all attendee microphones will remain muted during the meeting. Also, please be aware this meeting is being recorded. This presentation is a very broad overview of the future road improvements, and again, it's at a concept level. Specific questions or comments can be emailed to me directly at scward@olathe.ks.org or submitted via the chat box at any time. If we do run out of time before answering your question, please email or call me, and my goal is to respond back within 3 business days. The city's capital improvement plan identified Lone Elm Road from 119th Street to Harold Street as a priority project needed to address safety concerns and future traffic capacity. A few of the safety improvements include a center median, streetlights, sidewalks, on-street bike lanes, and turn lanes. Regarding the efficiency and capacity improvements, the future traffic volumes do not justify changing Lone Elm into a 4-lane road. The new road will remain a single lane in each direction. Turn lanes in the proposed roundabouts improve not only the safety, but promote efficient traffic movement. The next few slides review the existing conditions on the left and the proposed improvements on the right. Each drive lane on the existing road is narrow compared to the future roadway. The proposed road will have wider lanes, dedicated turn lanes, a median separating traffic, and the removal of trees adjacent to the roadway. In the city's ongoing commitment to be a walkable community, Lone Elm Road will now have a 5-foot wide sidewalk on the west side and a 10-foot wide side path on the east side. The new sidewalks will tie into any existing sidewalks. Without the benefit of curb, gutter, and an underground storm sewer system, the rainwater is carried in the green space and along the edge of the road. This open flow situation creates both erosion concerns and overgrowth issues. The existing conditions can hinder a driver's line of sight, and this reduces the amount of time available for the driver to make a decision. Picture shows a driver waiting on 124th Street while a school bus traveling south on Lone Elm becomes visible after cresting the hill. To improve the overall sight distance, Lone Elm will be flattened as much as possible, and this flattening has to take into account the impact to adjacent properties, driveways, and side street connections. Trimming and removing overgrowth can also help the overall sight distance. There are a handful of streetlights along the corridor. However, the future improvements will include new LED streetlights, and space will be made for bicycles with an on-street 5-foot wide bike lane in each direction. This rendering highlights some of the enhancements in the project. Working from left to right, there's a 5-foot wide sidewalk, on-street bike lanes, a single drive lane in each direction, center median, a representative streetlight, and a 10-foot wide side path. Again, the 5-foot wide sidewalk will be located on the west side, and the 10-foot wide side path will be located on the east side. Dedicated left and right turn lanes are not shown, though they are a part of the project. This slide, this slide shows a conceptual view of the proposed improvements. The exhibit is fairly large for PowerPoint, so for quality reasons, the exhibit is divided into two pieces and only a few of the side streets are labeled. In the far left corner of the top exhibit is the intersection of Harold and Lone Elm. The top exhibit goes from Harold Street to the dual roundabouts, which are located at 124th Street and 123rd Terrace. For reference, the bottom exhibit also shows the dual roundabouts, and the improvements proceed north, stopping short of the new 119th Street intersection, which is located in the lower right corner. The road alignment is staying virtually the same. Side street intersections and roundabouts will be discussed in the next few slides. Full access allows all left and right turns from and to a given street. The following intersections are proposed to have full access: 120th Street and 122nd Street. After reviewing the existing conditions and the roadway design variables, a center median is proposed across certain intersections. The following intersections are proposed to allow only right turns in and right turns out. These are 121st Street, 122nd Terrace, North Barker Street, 125th Terrace, and 126th Street. The amount of traffic on Lone Elm Road makes roundabouts a great solution to guide and move traffic in a safe and efficient manner. Roundabouts do provide complete access to all connected streets, and roundabouts also serve as U-turn locations for intersections with access control. This proposed roundabout is at Lone Elm and Harold. It will remove the four-way stop, eliminate left turn conflicts, and its long-term traffic capacity is expected to avoid the need for a future traffic signal. The intersections of 124th Street and 123rd Terrace pose a few challenges, and the best solution is this dual roundabout. North of 123rd Terrace, the road slopes way quickly. The future road can only be raised so high without negatively impacting the adjacent properties. The closeness of the two intersections can cause issues with competing left turns, and the pond on the west side limits the amount of room for road improvements. And since this is roughly the middle point between 119th and Harold, a pedestrian crossing is envisioned near these intersections. A dual roundabout was selected as the best way to allow northbound and southbound movements meet the pedestrian needs while fitting into the limitations of the existing conditions. No new traffic signals will be installed with the project. However, a pedestrian signal will be part of the project, and it will be activated by pedestrians to help them cross Lone Elm in a more controlled, safer manner. The pedestrian signal is tentatively going to be placed between 123rd Terrace and 124th Street. As part of the improvements, the old warehouse between 123rd Terrace and 124th Street will be removed. Our tentative schedule is to hold an in-person and virtual public meeting in early 2026. The plans will have greater detail, and any private property impacts are expected to be known. When the meeting details are finalized, the information will be sent out via postcard. Speaking of private property impacts, the city may request right-of-way or easements from adjacent property owners. Those property owners will be contacted by the city beginning in early 2026. If any relocation work is needed by the private utility companies such as Atmos, Evergy, or the various communication companies, then that work could start in the middle of 2026. Finally, the road construction is tentatively planned for 2027, with the construction taking about a year. Thank you for your time, and we'll make every effort to make this project successful. This concludes the presentation. There'll be a short break before I start it again. If you prefer to contact me directly with questions, my information is on the slide. And let's see, a couple new questions came in. Will the utility will the utilities sidewalk side path be located so as not to be moved again if four lanes is ever needed? Our future traffic projections go to 2040, and we're not seeing the need to make this section of Lone Elm a four-lane road. Will dump trucks and 18-wheelers be prohibited to be on 127th with this roundabout design? No. Um, the roundabout at at Harold and Lone Elm, I believe that's what you're talking about. It's designed for semi trucks to use. That doesn't mean that they will, but I'm sure you'll get an occasional moving van or someone who strictly looking at their GPS and gets lost. So it will be designed for semi trucks to use. Question about the two homes who have driveways that lead out to Lone Elm by 121st Street. How are they going to get onto and off Lone Elm? So at a conceptual level, and I believe we're in this area, but for any of the homes that um, have driveways onto Lone Elm, um, right turns obviously are um, will be your method of going in and out. Um, Due to the various factors, we cannot allow for left turns at so many locations along a busy street like this. So there'll be a right out, and then at the nearest intersection, um, we'll have space enough. In fact, that's what this flare is for a U-turn, and then you'll be able to go north. Um, and same here, these homes, they'll have the benefit of going down to the new roundabout at Harold to make their movement. Uh, question question about, are the utilities going underground? Or are they going to be overhead? Oh, and by the way, before I get away from the private homes, um, you are no different than a street whose only access point, like for instance, this neighborhood is on Lone Elm. Access to your homes will be maintained at all times. Um, and again, there'll be times when we need to rebuild your driveway, or we'll have work, right in front of your driveway that may cause a slight delay. Otherwise, when we rebuild the driveway, we'll create some access and we'll make sure to coordinate that with you. Um, we always want to make sure that we talk to individual homeowners who front onto a busy road like this and ensure that we understand if they have any special needs or have any appointments or anything like that. So that if we plan to do something on a Wednesday and you're like, oh no, can't do Wednesday, we're having a gigantic birthday party, then we'll work with the contractor and move things around. Um, so the question I was getting ready to read is, are utilities going underground? Or are they going to be overhead? Um, Typically, the communication companies are underground. If Evergy is overhead, they 99% of the time will remain overhead. And that's just because it's incredibly expensive for them to attempt to bury their lines. Can we get a copy of this presentation? It is a massive presentation, about 70 megabytes. However, we will get a web page created for this project and get this presentation posted to it. That I expect that will take at least a week, maybe two, to get that into the queue. And then uh, the presentation, uh, not just what I've been talking about, but also separately the PowerPoint will be posted there. If there are individual slides that you're interested in, I can certainly do that if you email me. Because, like for instance, I sent out uh, the tentative schedule to a gentleman earlier this afternoon, and that's something that most people are interested in. Excuse me. How many streetlights are proposed in this plan from 119th to Herald? I can't give you a number. However, typical streetlight spacing is about 150 feet. So um, it it'll be it'll be sufficient. There are uh, programs where you plug the streetlights in, and it gives you essentially lighting values. And so then adjustments are made to ensure that the lighting values meet design criteria. So most of the streetlights will also be in the median. And in fact, our goal typically is usually to have all the streetlights in the median. That's another reason for the raised median. Um, it's much more efficient to have a single pole with the dual heads, and it also allows us to, going back to the rendering. So this setup is much more efficient than trying to find a spot over here. And then that's only a single head. So you can be putting in more street lights if you have to put them on the outside of the road. And then you're also fighting for space with any underground utility companies. So I hope that answered that question. Uh, why does there need to be a difference in the width of the sidewalks? It's a city standard on streets of this type, um, and it's just to promote a better walk ride community, if you will. Um, there's on-street bike lanes, and typically those are used by individuals who might be a little bit more serious about their bike riding. Um, but then there are the younger kids who are learning how to ride their bikes or even the e-scooters, and you don't want them competing with a pedestrian on a 5 foot wide sidewalk. So typically, as they show on this rendering, um, you can accommodate a bike and a pedestrian, much with a lot more room to spare. So that's why we do that. How much would the estimated improvement cost? I do not. Again, we're only at concept level, so we do not have uh, any sort of estimated cost yet. But that'll come as we get further along in the plan development. Uh, Side of Lone Elm will have the 10-foot sidewalk, the east side, and the west side will be the 5 foot. Why raised a question about the raised median on this section of Lone Elm Parker when north and south don't have any? It, it's um, it's just it's a different design standard nowadays. Um, some of the uh, designs from previous years, even previous decades, uh, they found that there are ways to uh, improve safety and traffic capacity. I mean, think of it. That's how roundabouts came about, as opposed to just your standard intersection like like Lone Elm and Herald. A perfect example. Um, you have right now you have a four-way stop condition, and you have a potential for left turn conflicts or crashes, right? Um, and also it's inefficient because people get up to the how many times have you gone up to a four-way stop and you look at the other driver, it's like, is it your turn? Are you going? Well, with a roundabout, it's a yield situation. So you stop and go depending on the traffic. And sometimes you might have to wait for three cars to pass through. Other times it's wide open, so you just go. And it eliminates the potential for left turn crashes. Um, the vehicles go through here, at a slower rate of speed, and it avoids the potential long-term costs of traffic signal maintenance. So, to answer your question, it's just design standards have changed, and a a divided arterial with a raised median offers um, certain safety benefits and uh, inefficiencies that the roads north and south of there don't. So, hope that answered your question. Well, the roundabouts have landscaping. Um, Unsure. Potentially, I could see maybe Lone Elm and Harold based on its size. Um, the dual roundabouts, right now we aren't planning for any landscaping. It's a much smaller, tighter roundabout, again, because of our constraints. I mean, the and the warehouse here will be removed, but we've got the pond right there. So no landscaping here. Um, Potentially at Lone Elm. Not too sure about that. Question about, I think I missed this one. Mail on Lone Elm so that they don't have to cross the street. Oh, so your mailbox will be put on your side of the street. I didn't realize that they had mailboxes over on the opposite side of the street, but our intention is to um, have them on the same side of the street. And to my knowledge, the post office is on board with those types of things. Another mailbox question. Not sure if I answered it. What will happen with them? Um, Similar to all your other services, trash, your mailbox, though it might be temporarily located to, again, on your side of the street, um, you will have mail service. So, question about um, the budget for the project, and yes, certainly have a budget figure that I would be glad to share. Okay, the so as adopted uh, by City Council, the entire budget for this project is $15.8 million dollars. And that includes um, various categories, including construction, the engineering design work, potentially utility relocations. Sometimes if the utilities are in their own private easement, and we need them to move so that we can put in a new water main or storm sewer pipe, then we have to reimburse them for that. So the entire project uh, budget is $15.8 million. A question about if you end up taking more of our property to meet these designs, will the county reduce our property taxes appropriately? A little out of my realm, and typically we don't take large swaths of property. And again, we're at a conceptual level, very hard um, uh, to predict what we might need. I will say that a lot of times our requests are temporary construction easements, which is really just permission from you to use the land while we build the project, and then it goes away. Um, but to answer your question about permanent, fortunately, uh, the land agent that will be representing the city on this project has great knowledge about that. And when you meet him, and uh, he's expected to be at the um, meeting that we'll have in early July, you can ask him those questions. Or when you meet with him in person, his name's Alan Skeens, great guy. Does the city own the pond off 121st 4th Street? We do not. We do not. Um, I believe it might be owned by the apartment complex, but no, the city does not own that pond. And please, if I've missed your question, if you wouldn't mind taking the time to retype it, I'd be glad to field it. And I must say, been an excellent group. Um, Probably my highest attended virtual meeting. So that's awesome because it shows that you're involved and a lot of great questions. Well, we're getting close to closing out. Um, I wouldn't mind hanging on for a few more minutes if someone's trying to type up a question, be glad to hang on for another 5 minutes. Um, Otherwise, let me go back to the goodness. Let me go back to the contact information slide. Otherwise, please reach out to me. Email is the best way. That way we make sure that we have good answers for you. And thanks everyone for putting up with my allergies. Boy, nothing like a voice crack 3 slides in.